Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, man, today we're going to be taking a look at Sauce Gardner Johnson. So the very first play, so I went and looked at the clip before this one day because they only gave me this angle, and I kind of was just trying to look and see exactly what was the quarterback looking on this play because to me it didn't really add up. So for one, they were already short on time. I think it might have been like 30 some seconds left in the game, and they were losing realistically too. So I mean, it just was a prayer heave if you really want to be honest. But I was trying to see the quarterback drops and see how far did he drop back. And on this play right here, it was a third and I want to say maybe 3rd and 4 or something like that. So the quarterback had like it looked like he dropped back 7 and kind of worked on back up in the pocket. So you pretty much figured it was something that was going deep down the field. But then also too, if you look at the quarterback's eyes for the most part stayed on the left side of the field over where Sauce Gardner was able to get the interception. And it's like, to me, it looked like they was trying to run some type of a confusing route to try to, confuse the defense and hope and have both defenders take one guy and allow the other guy to kind of be running free. So you see they had the 2 receivers right there, and then they kind of crossed over. So you had the outside receiver in the slot, and when they ran their routes down the field, one of them went one way and the other one went the other way. So they tried to confuse the DBs and make both of them carry the same person. Now, it looks like they probably was in some type of zone play on this because I'm just going based off of watching Sauce Gardner and them eyes, and their eyes was on the quarterback predominantly for the most part. Now, if the receiver would have sat down right there, right kind of around that 30-yard line, I mean, he possibly would have that possibly would have been something that could work. But I think that the quarterback was more so throwing based off anticipation of where he thought the receiver was going to be, and the receiver, it just really like it was just kind of poorly executed because the receiver, he even pulled up. So it kind of was basically like a punt return for Sauce Gardner. But I mean, it's good on Sauce Gardner's part too, just kind of being able to, watch the quarterback's eyes and kind of try to identify exactly what they were trying to do. Because like I say, you see, he didn't really go for it. He stayed over the top of it, obviously. But then when he recognized that the quarterback, but that's also where his help was at too. So it's just kind of understanding the situation, and that allowed him to be a little bit more aggressive and stay over the top of this and, getting an easy interception. So, I mean, good heads up play by Sauce Gardner. So in this play right here, Sauce Gardner showcases one of the big threes that you must have as a defensive back. Like it's a lot of things, a lot of tools that you need to have in your belt as a defensive back. But one of the most important tools is being able to play man to man, being able to play the ball at the deep part of the field, and then also being able to make tackles, because I always talk about whenever it comes to stopping a team that's good at the run, it's not a it's not a one-person task. That's a team task. That's getting penetration up front. That's making sure that your linebackers are shooting the gaps, and that's making sure that your corners are setting the edge, but then being willing to come down and make the tackles whenever they need to. So right here, it looks like the Jets was probably in some type of level of man-to-man, and I think that Sauce was matched up with number 83, who they pulled to get out. And honestly, he probably should have blocked Sauce, being that if he would have blocked Sauce, because Sauce was the most immediate threat to him, so to the runner. So if he would have blocked Sauce, then they would have left him the running back with a better angle in a one-on-one situation with the other guy, opposed to letting Sauce be able to close the distance so quickly on him that he really wasn't able to make a move. But it's just a good IQ for Sauce to kind of realize that, okay, the ball isn't in his hand, number 83 hand. So now, whereas normally my assignment would have been to keep this guy man to man, once I know that the ball isn't in his hands, okay, now it's time to come downhill and make a tackle. So you've seen that he was traveling and he was chasing after number 83, but once he realized that it was a run play, he just cut right here and was able to make a open field tackle, make a play on a athlete in space, man. So, good IQ to recognize that, and good execution on Sauce's part, as well as effort. You know what I mean? That's my biggest thing, just watching them kind of take that pursuit angle and then being able to come down and make the tackle, man. That's one of those things right there that, you always want to see from your defensive backs. So on this play, you got Sauce Gardner matched up with the 49ers' best receiver, which is Brandon Ayuk. And like I always say, like even when I be breaking down the receivers, I always tell you guys that in order to be a top elite receiver, you have to be able to win those one-on-one matchups whenever you get them, right? Same thing for defensive backs. When you get those one-on-one matchups, when we put our best against their best, we want you to come up with a victory in those situations more times than not. So if you look at it, Ayuk was kind of lined up more so out towards the sideline, not necessarily closer to the line of scrimmage. scrimmage, you would call that a wider split. So when he lined up with a wider split, for the most part, it takes away anything outbreaking 9 times out of 10, just because you got that sideline that you're having to work up against. So most of the time, anything that you do is probably going to be in breaking route, like kind of like what he did right here. And Sauce just got up there with him at the line. He didn't necessarily kind of like get physical with him, but it's like obviously with Sauce having long arms too, man, he was able to kind of just get his arms on him and kind of use his arms as a guide to be able to stay over the top of him. And I mean, the ball was placed in the best possible position it could have been placed at. Sauce Gardner just did a good job at getting his hands up in there and disrupting the ball. So, man, it'd be so refreshing to see physical corners that don't mind coming downhill and laying the wood down. And that's exactly what Sauce Gardner did on this play right here. So I kind of shortened this play up. It looked like it was some type of broken down trick play where Debo was supposed to throw the pass. But I'm assuming that the line didn't hold up and they kind of got pressure on him. So he kind of just tried to do some schoolyard bull crap to try to make something happen. And, man, Sauce just came flying downhill and, helping, really just pursuing the ball, honestly, man. Like, realistically, that's really what it was. And like I say, when it comes to stopping the run, even though this wasn't a designed run play, it's a team effort. So you see those guys right there, they might have been missing tackles, but if everybody's flowing, rallying to the ball, and you got your corners, once the edge has been set and they realize that he's no threat, they need to come downhill and be able to make tackles. And that's exactly what Sauce did against a physical runner like Debo Samuel. So again, right here, you got another one-on-one matchup with one of the best receivers in the NFL, but the best receiver on the Minnesota Vikings, which is Justin Jefferson and Sauce Gardner. So once again, it's kind of a similar situation to the previous play. It looked like Justin Jefferson was lined up outside the numbers, like I said. So a lot of times, if you see that receiver lined up kind of close towards the line, closer to the sideline than he is the line of scrimmage, for the most part, you can kind of anticipate that it's an in-breaking route just like this one right here. So, Sauce do a pretty good job at doing like how he did against Brandon Ayuk, just being able to probably not necessarily jam him up as hard as he can, but just being able to get hands on him to try to stay over the top of him to try to prevent the slant as best as he can. So, I mean, he's played the slant well on 2 different plays against 2 different good receivers. Now, granted, you can play devil's advocate on Sam Darnold's part, and you can say, well, he probably could have did a better job at using his eyes to look off of that linebacker, which probably would have gave Jefferson a little bit more time to probably maybe trying to put himself in a better possible position to separate away from Sauce Gardner, or he could have used his eyes to try to keep the linebacker at bay and kind of threw a more of an anticipatory throw where he kind of threw it before Justin Jefferson's break. I mean, if I'm a quarterback, most of the time I'm confident whenever I can get those one-on-one matchups that my receiver like Justin Jefferson will be able to win that matchup. But honestly, like I said, man, on this rep right here, man, Sauce Gardner played this as best as you could play it. So we got another matchup against one of the best receivers in the NFL, which is George Pickens on a goal line fade. And they didn't even, like I said, you kind of seen exactly what this route was before it even happened, based off of where they kind of had him lined up, and kind of really just off the release that George Pickens kind of gave. He kind of gave somewhat of a hesitation to where he's kind of trying to, I guess, set Sauce Gardner up and keep him on the balls of his feet, and then break it outside abruptly, and was hoping that it was going to be a back shoulder. But like I said, once again, Sauce does a good job, like I said, with that 6'1" frame. I think he's about 6'1", 6'2". He does a good job at using those long arms to, touch the receiver up front. And sometimes I know I've said a couple times that whenever he used his hands to get physical at the line, he didn't really just press. But sometimes just getting your hands up there on them can slow down the timing of a route, because everything is timing based from the quarterback. Once he take his drop back, he's expecting that receiver to be in a certain place at a certain specific position. So just getting your hands up there and trying to reroute him as much as you can. It don't have to be too overly aggressive to where you end up putting yourself in a bad position. Just being able to get up at the line of scrimmage and get aggressive with him, it just slows down the timing of the route. But Sauce, like I said, he did a good job at playing this one, man, with getting physical, but then also too turning his head back around to locate the ball, man. So and these are one of the hardest throws to guard. That back shoulder fade, like this is one of the hardest throws in the world to guard. So considering how he played this, man, that was just well played on Sauce's part. So we got a gotta have it play right here with Sauce matched up on the outside with DK Metcalf again. Now notice what I always talk about. I always talk about watching splits, right? So notice that when the previous plays we were looking at with Jefferson and with Ayuk, they were lined up outside the numbers, right? So if they're lined up outside the numbers, it's only so much that they can do because of that sideline. So 9 times out of 10, it's going to be something vertical, or it's going to be something inward. So on this play right here, you got DK that's lined up kind of on top of the numbers, somewhat inside the numbers, right? So that kind of can be an indicator of something that they're probably trying to have some type of outbreaking route, which 9 times out of 10 is probably going to be a fade. They got a one-on-one matchup on the outside with DK, but this is where you make your money in terms of Sauce Gardner. You know, those one-on-one matchups with those top guys and those gotta have moments. And he does a good job at kind of just funneling DK towards the sideline. Because, like, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, if DK still would have caught that pass, he would have been out of bounds. So it would have been an incompletion. But Sauce does a good job at playing through DK hands and just putting his hands up there at the right at the right time to kind of dislodge the ball. Right here, you got another one-on-one matchup with Sauce Gardner and DK, and Sauce just does a good job at utilizing the length of his arms, man. Like I said, man, he normally uses his arms to kind of stay on top of the receiver, especially with those in-breaking routes. And, man, I'm going to be honest, man, it's like Sauce is, from what I'm seeing, he's probably as complete of a corner as you can get. You know, he can play the ball on the deep part of the field, but then he also can play the ball on the short routes, like with the slant routes, like we've seen him do with here, like we've seen him do with Jefferson, like we've seen him do with Ayuk. And a lot of the times, you know, with longer receivers, they're not really not longer corners, my bad. They're not as good moving horizontally a lot of the times. You know, you see like those longer press corners, they kind of struggle with those lateral movements. I mean, not horizontal, but those side to side movements. So, but he plays those very good, especially with his size. But right here, he just does a good job, like I said, with his hands, staying on top of DK Metcalf, and then just being able to reach through and break up the pass, you know, to prevent a touchdown, man. So right here, we got a 1st and 10 play against the Seattle Seahawks. And Sauce, man, he just did a phenomenal job at kind of just reading this play. So it looks like they were in a man-to-man coverage, and Sauce was playing off-man. So obviously, you know, a lot of times in off-man, you know, a lot of times you're gonna be I know DBs a lot of times are taught to kind of watch the quarterback in terms of like whether they in a shotgun or under center to see how many drop steps they take to kind of identify whether it's going to be a deep pass or whether it's going to be a short to intermediate throw. So he does a pretty good job at kind of just looking at kind of, you know, probably keeping his eyes in the backfield too, but watching the receiver and seeing that, okay, the receiver finna run back in and probably try to set up some type of in-breaking route. Right here was a screenplay, and, man, he just was able to beat, you know, kind of get there as soon as the ball hit the receiver. Now, you probably can say, okay, if the ball might have been thrown a little bit quicker, like bam, right there, but, I mean, I think that Sauce did a good job at reacting to that. So even if he would have put it in a position more so in the front where he can catch it and run, I still think that it would have been a minimal game on that play right there. But once again, phenomenal open field tackle against an athlete by Sauce Gardner. And like I say, man, that's what separates the good from the great. You got good guys that can make plays every now and then, but the greats are guys that can make plays repetitively. And from watching Sauce film, man, he's been able to do that, whether that's him defending or whether whether it's him in pass defense or whether it's him actually being able to make tackles in open field. So right here, man, we got Sauce displaying his ability to play the ball down the deep part of the field. It looked like that's a matchup on Calvin Ridley, which I'm not quite sure if it was man-to-man coverage or what, and the safety kind of – well, he got two receivers running in the same – direction. So I'm not quite sure exactly what was going on right there, but Sauce was able to, you know, stay underneath. Then he had somebody over the top. And like I said, man, he's good at tracking the ball, whether it's from slant routes or whether it's anything over the top. And it's almost like, you know, he kind of, well, for that one, he was able to actually, you know, based off of his positioning, he kind of was able to get his head back and track the ball. But on a lot of those other ones, when he wasn't necessarily able to get back and get his head around and keep it around for an extended period, what he would do is like he would go based off of the receiver hands. So when the receiver would raise his hands up, obviously that's a sign that the ball is coming, and he kind of would just anticipate it and just put his hands up through his hands to get the pass breakup, kind of similar to what, well, I wouldn't, it's similar to it, but like I say right here, like he actually just was able to deflect the ball, so he didn't have to actually worry about going up through Calvin Ridley's hands to try to stop him from deflecting. He was able to deflect it before it even got to Calvin Ridley. So I'm going to finish it off right here with this play. Once again, you got another fade route concept. Sauce matched up one-on-one on the outside. And like I say, man, that's kind of the bread and butter of what we've been seeing with Sauce, man. We've seen Sauce matched up on Brandon Ayuk on the outside. We've seen him matched up with JJ, which is Justin Jefferson for those who may not know. We've seen him matched up with Pickens. We've seen him matched up with Metcalf. So we've seen him win these matchups consistently, and that's the traits of a elite defensive back. Like I say, once again, right here, he does a good job at getting active with him. Boom, getting hands on him, and then being able to locate the ball and be able to play the ball. And like I said, man, just kind of play through his hands, because it like the receiver actually kind of somewhat caught it or was trying to catch it, but he kind of just whipped his arm up through to dislodge the ball and, you know, lead to the incompletion, man. So like I said, man, that's what you want when you like Sauce. To me, what I've been saying is like kind of what is what you would consider a lockdown corner, because it's like they run a lot of man coverage. Like a lot of these plays that we're seeing with him matched up on these elite receivers, it was one-on-one for the most part. You might have had a safety over the top, but for the most part, it was one-on-one coverage, and he was able to come up victorious in a lot of those situations. Like I said, man, he's good at using his range, his long arms to be able to get physical at the line. He's darn good at being able to use his arm to rip up through to try to be able to dislodge the ball. Like we've seen him do that on this play. We've seen him do it with the Pickens. We've seen him do it with that also with the Metcalf. And I think it was one more person he might have done that with as well. But he's very good at that, man. Also, we've seen the willingness to want to tackle, to be able to come downhill. And on top of that, I would say something that I didn't really think about that he might have been real good as kind of play recognition. Like you've seen how he was able to drive on that screen pass and be able to identify it and go down there and make a play. And then also you've seen his ability to play the ball on the deep part of the field with the pass deflection against Calvin Ridley, man. So just an overall stud of a guy. I know statistical wise, he probably didn't have the best season last year, and that could have been from a numerous amount of things. I mean, it could have possibly been from him missing games, whether he was hurt, and then it could have just been from teams not really wanting to throw his way. So, you know, that's to me, when you're looking at a corner, unless you were one of those guys who like the bait, not having a lot of interceptions and pass breakups aren't necessarily a bad thing, because most teams are probably going to try to stay clear away from you. That's probably going to be something that's going to be talked about in the game plan. But man, that's it for this video, man. If you did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're a New York Jets fan, man, smash that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel, man, make sure you subscribe. And when you subscribe, click that notification bell, where you make sure you'll be notified every time I upload. Because as you guys can see, I've been coming back to back, and I'm trying to stay on that, man. So you don't want to miss. And I'll see y'all in the next video.